let's talk about the million who remain. And you talk about the 1 million into Germany. Can you give us a little bit of information about who these people were and who went willingly and who didn't?
Yeah, there were three different streams into Germany during the war. The largest was the stream from Eastern Europe, mostly from Poland and the Ukraine. These were, in large part, adolescents and young men and women who were grabbed from their homes, forced onto trucks and trains into Germany. Hitler and the Third Reich leadership knew from the very beginning that the only possible way to send millions of soldiers to the Eastern Front was to replace them with millions more forced enslaved laborers from the East. So that was the first group, and they began arriving in 1940, 1941, and continued to arrive through the end of the war. The second stream that made up the last million came in 1944 and 1945 from Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and parts of Ukraine. And these were men, women, and their children, the men and women who had in one way or another collaborated with the Nazi authorities. Sometimes that collaboration meant simply working in a post office that was overseen by a Nazi official. In other cases, it meant serving in the auxiliary police and rounding up Jews. In some cases, it meant joining a Waffen-SS division. When it became clear that the Red Army was on its march and would soon arrive in the Baltic states and in the Ukraine, thousands upon thousands of citizens who had collaborated in some way, and citizens who could not abide the thought of living under Soviet domination, made their way into Germany. The third group were the Jewish survivors. As the war came to an end, Hitler and the German officials realized that they didn't want the fact of the death camps to be discovered by the Russians in the world, number one. Number two, they needed more labor at home than they were getting from the forced laborers and slave laborers. And the decision was made to relocate those who had survived the death camps and the labor camps in Poland and in the Balkans, to relocate them, to death march them into Germany, where they would be not gassed, but worked to death, most of them in underground mines, mills, armament factories. These are the three groups that make up the last million. Their journeys into Germany are different. So too would be their experiences in Germany.
So it's VE Day or a little bit after. We're in Europe, 1945. Can you give us a little bit of a feel for what it's like in these camps and what sort of the life, and then what sort of futures or choices are these people looking at?
There is no way to comprehend the devastation in Germany that the displaced persons found when they left their workplaces or their concentration camps or their POW camps. They were rounded up by the Allies, put on trucks, gotten out of the way, shipped to assembly centers, and then sorted out by nationality and put into camps behind barbed wire often. Camps that were run by UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration, but supplied by the armies. The armies supplied them with food, medical supplies, shelter. They built facilities, and then UNRWA took care of them. What happened was that in Germany, in the years following VE Day, in these camps, there were little Ukraines, little Latvias, little Jewish settlements. In the beginning, the UNRWA and the Allies decided that they were going to separate out the last million by nationality. They did not recognize that there was such a thing as a Jew. Lithuanian Jews were sequestered with Lithuanians, Polish Jews with non-Jewish Poles. In many instances, the Jewish survivors found themselves in the same camps as those who had been their guards in the concentration or labor camps. That ended in July and August, and the Jews were put into their own camps. The sense in all of these camps was that this was transitional, that they would soon be allowed to go home. The Latvians, the Estonians believed that World War III was coming rapidly, and the Americans and the British were going to liberate the Ukraine, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania from the Soviets, and the displaced persons could go home again. The same with the Poles. The Jews knew that they could never go home again, that they had no place in Europe, though some of the Bundists tried in the beginning to convince themselves and others that they could return to Poland and build a new Jewish community. For the Jews, the only place on earth they soon recognized where they would be welcome was Palestine, though the British did everything they possibly could under the mandate to keep the Jews out.